I'm Stuart Gauthier, County Agent with the LSU Ag Center here in Lafayette and Vermilion Parish, and welcome to Get It Growing with the Lafayette Master Gardeners. Today we have a special show. We're going to be talking with one of our long-term Master Gardeners, Mr. Jack Musk with Wild Birds Unlimited, about birds in Acadiana. Welcome to our show.
It's great to be here, Stuart. It's always a pleasure to get out and talk to people about gardening and birds and what's going on in South Louisiana.
Well, we thought what we'd do is, first of all, invite you to come out to the R. Nelson Horticulture Center and come by and visit some of the demo beds that we've put in over the years there that we have tried to make attractive to birds. We have a hummingbird garden. We also have a butterfly garden. We also have a number of demo beds where we've planted some plants, and we brought a few of those plants here today just to kind of show you if you were going by there and you wanted to look at our demo beds, which you might see this time of year. And I've been impressed over the years just the number of birds that even in an urban setting that we attract to our demo beds there at the R. Nelson Horticulture Center. We also have, in addition to that, a real nice pepper garden right now, and peppers can be very attractive to birds. And we have brought in some of these pepper samples here, and we do have a bird pepper that we have growing there, as well as a lot of different types of hot peppers that are very pretty and attractive going into the fall months. So if you're in the area, try to stop by and take a look at our demo beds that are on display for the public. We want to mention a few activities that we have coming up. One, the Orchid Society is going to be having a program at the R. Nelson Horticulture Center next week on Wednesday, starting at 9 a.m. To introduce people and to answer questions about orchids. So if you're interested in orchids, you might want to take part in that activity. I'm working with a mourning dove management workshop that we will have out at the Sheriff's Garden near Karen Crow, which is near the compost facility. And we have a mourning dove management workshop that we're going to have people from Wildlife and Fisheries, the LSU Ag Center, and the U.S. Department of the Interior will be answering questions from people that are interested in planting different forage crops for doves to attract doves for hunting. And that workshop, if you're interested in it, you can call our office at 291-7090. As I said, it's going to be on Tuesday, August 14th at 4 p.m., and we want to try to get a good crowd out there. We do have about 2 acres of sunflowers, millet, corn, milo planted that will show you how it's performed for us, the different varieties, and we'll have some questions. We'll be taking any questions that we have about what you can legally do and not legally do in terms of managing forage crops for doves. We also have our fall plant sale coming up on September 15th. We want to invite the public to our fall plant sale, and some of the plants that we have here on the table today that are in our demo beds will be for sale. So if you're interested in maybe starting making your landscape more attractive to birds and you want to plant some plants, this is a good opportunity to come to our fall plant sale and pick up some of those plants that can get you to turn your backyard into a bird haven. And we also have a really big activity coming up we'll be talking about in future shows is the State Master Gardener Convention, which is going to be at the Cajun Dome Convention Center October 10th, 11th, and 12th. And we're going to have Master Gardeners come to Lafayette from throughout the state. We're hoping to get 300 to 400 Master Gardeners at that event. We have some really top-notch speakers coming in to present programs to our Master Gardener groups from throughout the state of Louisiana. So with that, let's get started. We talked about our demo beds, how we have some plants that are growing there in the fall plant sale. On September 15th, be an opportunity for people to maybe buy some of those plants. And when you look at planting versus, I see that you brought some things right here that you can put out there to attract birds. What's going to be the most attractive way, or what's the thing we can do as homeowners to attract the most birds to our backyard?
So the most critical element is your plant. Having all of these is great until you have a yard that's planted correctly. You won't need these things. The plants, you want to have layering. You want to have ground cover. You want to have shrubs and bushes. You want to have low cover trees. You want to have high canopy trees. Each one of those levels attracts a different type of bird population. So your ground cover and low shrubs, you're going to see your wrens, you're going to see your brown thrashers, birds of that nature, your white-throated sparrows in there. During migration, you're going to get your buddings through that type of environment. And then when you get into the higher canopies, you start getting your warblers and your cardinals and blue jays and mockingbirds. So what you want to do is look at your yard and say, do I have plants at different heights?
Mm-hmm.
And those different heights are going to present a more attractive environment. I saw a program once that was very interesting. It showed a beautifully manicured lawn, and
we might be having a little trouble with your mic.
Okay.
Maybe if you could kind of hold your mic there and see if we can get a little better sound, because we definitely want to be able to hear what you're telling us here.
Okay. Saw this beautiful program, and it showed a nicely manicured grass lawn, very attractive to the eye of the beholder. But if you looked at it from the perspective of a bird, when he looked at that yard, what he saw was a desert. Because without places to hide, without places to get away from predators, they don't feel safe, they're not going to be there. Once you get your yard established, then adding feeders, housing, and bass are the components that you want to enhance your yard with. But you've got to start with a proper yard.
And from what you're saying, you want a wide variety of different plants.
Wide variety, definitely. You want some berry-bearing plants, you want some fruit-bearing plants, you want nectar-bearing plants, you just want greenery. You want to have evergreens, so during the winter, when the birds migrate through, there's something there to hide in rather than a bare tree. And so to have a blend, and also to have succession planting. Have plants that bloom early in the spring. And so as the hummingbirds are moving north, as the other birds are moving north, as the bees and butterflies are coming out of dormancy, they have food sources. And then you want plants that bloom throughout the summer, and then you want late fall blooming plants. And then you have winter birds, hummingbirds and other birds, and they need cover and shelter.
And I see you've brought a little pamphlet here. If people would have questions about some of the plants they might incorporate into their landscape, there's a lot of literature out there that's available that y'all have.
We worked with Bill Fontenot,
Mm-hmm.
who has the articles in the Daily Advertiser, very much into native plants, one of the pioneers in this area. And we established from the different levels, from ground cover to high canopy, great native species of plants that you can plant to make the yard more attractive. So you can pick and choose from here and get the different layers of canopy and have that in mind. And the nice thing about natives, low maintenance, easy to take care of, high success rate in plantings. You also sell a lot of them at the plant sale. So it's a good place to go.
As I was saying, I know it's amazed me over the years as we've developed our demo bed areas, like our hummingbird garden, for example. We get, one day I was out there and I probably counted 20, 30 hummingbirds. And we don't generally necessarily have hummingbird feeders out there. We just have plants that we've put in that are very attractive to hummingbirds. And they will really, from the Turk's cap, and we brought some of the other plants here that they really like, some of the tropical hibiscus that we have growing in that bed. And just, planting plants is a great way to go. And it's also, in a lot of ways, probably a lot less maintenance than trying to keep up with bird feeders that are going to attract squirrels or that are going to maybe have other problems associated with them.
Right. And if you're looking at hummingbirds, the plants are what really brings the birds to your backyard and gets them there. They do need the feeders during migration, because what they're having to do is bulk up for that trip across the Gulf. And they double their weight before they leave. And so they're looking for that pure sugar high. They're bulking up so that when they leave here, when they cross that Gulf, they have enough energy to make it across. And so the feeders are extremely important as we get into migration. But if you don't have the plants, just having a feeder, you're not going to see the birds like you do if you have the plants.
Let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing this time of year. What kind of birds are flying through Lafayette, and what can we do to kind of help them on their way?
Okay. We're just on the very front edge of migration where the purple martins have pretty much left us. We did have last week several reports of huge flights of the purple martins. They had to be from the northern who were coming down, and they were roosting here on their journey. I'm talking hundreds of them at one time, which was really neat to hear. Over the next few weeks, we're going to start seeing the warblers move through. We're going to see a pickup in the number of hawks around as they follow the migration. You'll get some grosbeaks coming through, a lot of different sparrows as well. And we have the white-throated sparrows that winter here, and you'll see the bunnings, grosbeaks, and these birds all moving through. But a lot of warblers as well. If you have canopy, if you have the food, water, they're insect eaters, so you don't need food for them. You need water and places for them to hide and rest.
And let's talk a little more about hummingbirds, because, you know, in terms of our office, that's probably one of the more popular bird species that we get a lot of calls about. And maybe explain a little bit about, you know, this time of year, what the hummingbirds are doing. I know you mentioned a little bit about how they're trying to bulk up, but what are some other things we can do in our yards to try to help the hummingbirds?
Okay. The ones that we're seeing now pretty much are those local summer hummingbirds. They're the ones who nested here this summer, and they're off the nest. They've fledged their young. We're beginning to see the mamas and the babies and the daddies around the plants and feeders. And so it's really neat. Now, a lot of people say, I saw a mama with a baby. I saw a real small one. And the interesting phenomenon is that's the mama. The baby is larger than the mama when they first fledge. They have training wings that are actually larger than their adult plumage. It makes them easier for them to learn to fly. And mama's been feeding them and chasing after them, and she hadn't had time to feed herself. So actually the small one is mama and the big one is the baby. But we're beginning to see more of them around the feeders, around the plants. You'll see more around the plants now because they're not migrating yet. They're not hitting the feeders. They'll be coming through in larger numbers over the next week to 2 weeks to 10 days, and then it will build up until late September, early October. We also recommend we start having winter hummingbirds. There are 7 different species that winter in South Louisiana, and so keep feeders up, keep plants blooming, and keep on the lookout. Keep that feeder fresh.
Are we seeing an increase in like hummingbirds in the United States, or is it a population that's declining, or do we have any way of estimating that?
There are a lot of bandings that are going on, a lot of banding surveys. We've noticed each year, the last 5 years, Feliciana Parish has a hummingbird festival, which is, in fact, it took place last weekend. At the banding sites that they have, the last 2 years, the numbers have been down. We don't know what's causing that, whether they're relocating to other areas. Right after the hurricanes, we had tremendous numbers through here because the birds were being diverted because of lack of food sources. And so when we look at last year compared to 2 years ago, the number was down, but we don't know whether that is a large decrease or not. The hummingbirds, the new fledglings, have about a 90% death rate. Only about 10% make it through the first year. And so it's a real struggle. They have to have a lot of babies and do a lot to keep the population up. And that's why it's so critical to garden for them, to put food out for them, because they do struggle to keep their numbers up.
And what is their biggest enemy in nature? What brings down their population the most?
Cats are number one. Keep your cat indoors. If they have to be out, let them out at night instead of the daytime. They're the number one predator. Surprisingly, lizards and spiders. They'll fly into spider webs and get tangled up and can't fly. And then snakes, also frogs, and windows. Have a lot of window strike deaths. And so those are the major things that they challenge or face, besides the weather. Once they leave here and they get over the Gulf, whatever the weather does, that's what they deal with. And many of them just, if they get into headwinds, they get exhausted and fall into the Gulf and die. So it's a long journey, tough journey for them.
Now, I wasn't always aware that other amphibians and reptiles would eat hummingbirds. And one of my coworkers in Vermilion Parish, Mark Shirley, actually took a picture of a tree frog eating a hummingbird.
Yeah.
And that was quite amazing. And it was a funny picture because after the frog got the hummingbird in his mouth, it seemed like he didn't really know what to do with it. He was kind of caught there. But we do get a lot of calls on hummingbirds, and sometimes people will find them, in their garage or hurt.
Right.
What should you do if you find a hurt bird, or if you're concerned?
Well, if you find one in your garage, they're going to continue to try to fly upward. That's their natural instinct. What you can do is put a feeder right at the door so that they'll come down to feed and hope that they take off the other direction when they get off the feeder. Otherwise, as they struggle, they'll run out of energy, and you can put a broom or a mop up there, and they'll land on it, slowly bring them down, gently grasp them, put them on a feeder to give them some energy, take them out away from the garage and release them. Injured hummingbirds, if they're a window strike and they're just kind of knocked a little silly, have the bell rung, you can hold them gently in your hand. Your body warmth will keep them from going in shock, and you'll see the light come on in their eyes, and they'll start to move around. You open your hand, and they'll take off. If they're injured, broken wing or something, they're going to become a mortality. There's no real way to set the wing, and they're not going to be able to fly. The local rehab unit, the couple that ran it has retired, so there's really no one taking care of injured birds in Lafayette.
We also get a lot of calls on people finding dead birds, and I know one of the things that has caused a lot of mortality to certain bird species is the West Nile virus.
Yes. If you find a dead bird and you want to find out if it's a result of West Nile, recommend putting on gloves, double bagging that bird, and getting it to the health unit. And they'll be able to run a check on it and find out if it was West Nile. West Nile is having a tremendous impact on bird populations, where crows and blue jays seem to be two of the ones that really get hit. But we're also nationally seeing a decrease in the chickadee population. They seem to be hit hard by the West Nile. So there are species of birds that seem to be more susceptible, and the populations have been negatively impacted.
And those would be more of the birds that you'd want to bring in, would be the crows and blue jays?
Well, any bird.
Any bird?
Any bird, just to know, because other birds are impacted, but definitely a crow or a blue jay is probably one you want to have checked. Right.
Let's talk a little bit about purple martins, because that's another real popular bird here in Acadiana that people often try to attract to their yards. What can we do if we want some purple martins? What can we do to try to get more purple martins in our yard, or to work with purple martins?
Okay, well, purple martins come in usually mid to late January, February, March is when the bulk of the migration is. Those birds, the first ones that show up, they're known as scouts, but they're not scouts from coming in and looking where housing is. Those are adult males who have nested before and are going back to see if their nesting spots are there or not. And so they try to reclaim their nesting areas. What you want to do is, if you have a house already, get it down, clean it up by the early to mid-January. Get any sparrows out, get their nesting materials out, get any starlings and their nesting materials, clean it, dust it. I like to use diatomaceous earth instead of a chemical base to kill any mites that are in the house. Your house should be positioned where you have lots of open space around it. Don't put it near trees and shrubs, and it's going to be more desirable to the birds. Once you get it cleaned out, then you have to work to keep it clean, because the sparrows and the starlings are going to immediately try to nest in it again. And the martins, if they had success in a house, they'll fight for it. But if they've never used that house, they're not going to fight. They're going to go look for something else. So keep your house clean and up. Put it in an open area. And when you see them coming, just welcome them.
And I know, over the years I've worked with a lot of people who have had very good luck in keeping up, purple martin houses. And even, I know there's one person in particular who has made a lot of the houses out of gourds.
Right.
And that seemed to be he was very successful. I don't know, that's if that's usually most people's experience, but making gourd houses or some different type of houses that he could suspend in the air.
Gourds are probably the most successful.
The most successful?
The gourds are imprinted in the martins from years and years and years. The Indians had martins around their campsites. But when you're tanning skins and things, you have a lot of flies and other insects. And so by attracting the martins, they would have kind of a garbage collection system for the insects around their campsites. And of course, they used gourds because that was natural. And so the martins have a preference for gourds. And then wooden houses, metal houses, and then plastic. Gourds are the most successful.
Let's talk a little bit about bluebirds. That's another bird species that we get a lot of calls on. People want to attract bluebirds to their backyard. And I've seen over the years just working, we're talking about our mourning dove workshop we're going to have on August 14th. While out there, I know at the Sheriff's Garden, they've put out over the years at times, people have put out some bluebird houses out there and off of Endugal Road, and they've had pretty good luck. And I even know, next to our demo bed area at our Nelson Horticulture Center, we put out a bluebird house this year. And even right there off of Johnson Street, we had a bluebird that tried to set up nest in it. But what's some things we can do if we want to attract bluebirds? Because they're definitely one of the beautiful species that we have here in Acadiana.
Yes, they are. And 11 years ago when we opened, there weren't many bluebirds south of I-10. There was, in fact, south of Opelousas, there weren't that many. The population's growing and their territory seems to be expanding, which is wonderful. It's real hard to get them settled in town. They like open space, they like fields. So typically the suburbs are more successful than in town itself for attracting them. Having housing, it's better not on a tree, but putting it on a post. Some people put them on fences. You want them about 5 to 6 feet in the air. Make sure they're baffled so predators can't get in the nest. Have open space around for them. And then if you feed mealworms, that's a good food for them. And so that gives them the food sources they need as well as the housing.
And I know with bluebirds, I live near Kaplan, Louisiana, and you're saying them, about expanding their range. I'll even see them sometimes in that area. Why are we seeing an increase in their numbers? Is it because of people's efforts in encouraging them, or is it more just a natural thing that's occurring?
Yeah, more people are putting out housing, and so that's giving them more opportunity to nest. And as they nest, they have young, and that gives us more population and more housing. When we first opened, we probably didn't have 2 or 3 nest houses at request any season. Now it's probably our most popular house.
Is the bluebird. How about wood ducks?
Wood ducks are great. We're seeing an increase in the numbers and the housing for them.
And what, in terms of if you want to put up a wood duck house, what are wood ducks doing this time of year? Is this a good time of year to put up a house, or?
It's a good time to put up a house. They may roost in them, but they're not going to nest until January, February.
So even inside the city limits of Lafayette, we have a pretty healthy wood duck population?
In town, fair. Suburbs, good.
It's pretty good. What birds are in trouble, or that you see are maybe declining, or that we didn't see like we used to see, and that are maybe we should worry about?
Chickadee populations seem to be going down. Other birds are holding their own.
Pretty much holding their own. And I know we've talked about a few different species of birds today, and we've talked about some of our demo beds here at our Nelson that people can come by and take a look at our different flowers that we have and different plants that we have.
How you doing, Dad? You got anything in your mouth? You okay?
Yeah.
Good. Can you get a pillow?
Do you have seizures, Mr. Murphy?
No.
You hurt anywhere?
Do you have any conditions?
You hurt anywhere?
No, I just got lightheaded and
Lightheaded.
Behind it,
Okay,
okay.
we're gonna get started.
We need a pillow. Okay.